Well, hopefully some good news on the horizon with a new 12.0 version of Fannie Mae that is soon to be released. And we've got some tips on here on some borrowers who might be helped and some borrowers who might be hurt. So let's dive into it a little bit. This is George Anderson, and thanks for coming into thecreditjungle.com.
George of the jungle, strong as he can be.
We're still waiting to see how this affects things. The way that I looked at it, there were kind of about 3 positive takeaways and 1 probably a negative takeaway from it, but I think the proof's going to be in the pudding. But anyway, the potential buyers that could be helped on this first would be first-time buyers. They've noticed they track default rates. A lot of times when there's a change to the underwriting guidelines, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, FHA, VA, what they do is let's look at the loans that went bad and let's start finding out if there's some common threads through the loans that went into default or got foreclosed on, and then maybe make some adjustments to avoid having that happen again. So this is how we get underwriting guidelines, is by looking at non-performing loans and then trying to figure out, let's see what we're doing that we can avoid that. But what they found, that first-time home buyers under similar circumstances with the same amount of money down, same debt ratios and everything else, are actually a little bit less likely to default than somebody who has already owned a home. So that might be a plus for first-time home buyers, as far as maybe squeezing things through that are on the margin that normally might not be. The other thing that they found on there is that people with student loan debt typically have a lower default rate on their mortgages. So, we'll see what that means, but I guess it means that maybe if there's some higher education, that might also have included some credit education that came along with it. I don't know why they're coming up with those things. All I'm doing is sharing the report here. And then the last sector that may also help from this would be people who have limited credit, maybe only 1 credit score, no credit. And what it looks like would happen on this is that if you had a borrower with credit scores and a co-borrower with no credit scores, that no credit score borrower is no longer going to be an anchor dragging on it, but that it may just fold into the borrower that has the credit scores. It was a little unclear how this happens, but anyway, so the groups that there might be a positive impact on this would be first-time buyers, people with student loan debt, and then people who have limited or maybe not so much established credit. There is one on here that I think is going to be appears to be the negative on this, but again, we'll have to wait and see what happens. But if you had somebody that had a serious credit event, and typically that's going to be a bankruptcy or a foreclosure, what it would do is, rather than saying that the file was ineligible and it's just an automatic decline, it would say refer with caution. In other words, the automated underwriting system would come back with a result that said, we're not going to make a determination on this, hand it off to an underwriter and let the underwriter determine it. Well, now, if you have a bankruptcy, and it depends on which type, I mean, you can have a Chapter 7 or a Chapter 13. Those are the types of consumer bankruptcies that are in there. They look at them slightly differently, but they're basically just going to come out now and it's going to say that it's ineligible. So if you are too close to the minimum time frame away from that event, so in other words, if your foreclosure was 3 years ago and they want to see 4, or your bankruptcy was 2 and they want to see 3, 1 and they want to see 2, whatever it is, it's going to come back, and instead of saying refer to an underwriter, it's just going to say it's not eligible. Well, what that means, at least on certain types of loan programs, is the refer was basically a suggestion to let an underwriter look at it, because there could be mitigating circumstances around that credit event. That if an underwriter were to look at it, and if the loan officer were to document it and the borrower can explain it, that they might say, oh, I understand, the automated underwriting system is just basically allowing me as an underwriter to look at this more carefully and pass some judgment on this. It appears as though that option might be gone. And so I think that that's going to be a negative for people who, for whatever reason, maybe through a divorce, or they had an illness that was a one-time incident that put them into a bad situation and they had to have a bankruptcy or they lost their home. There used to be a little bit of flex under some of those circumstances, and it appears that that may be going away. So anyway, so we got 3 potentially good things, 1 potentially negative thing with this new version of Desktop Underwriter, or DU, that is going to be released. And let's just hope again that this is something that creates more opportunities, not less opportunities, for people to obtain home ownership. So to find out the details and where you stand exactly, push button Get Mortgage Professional. This is George Anderson. Thanks for coming into the credit jungle, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. Have a wonderful day.
George of the jungle, strong as he can be.